In the Hearts and Minds, Book 0, The Birth of a Hero, Story 13, The Man with the Bowler Hat. Truvian headquarters, nicknamed the President's Cabin, was a scraping tall building made of glass, metal, and little else. Even the plants tossed about in each lobby of each floor were metallic. The wall decorations were so metallic that they grew hot to the touch halfway through the day. Curtains weren't a thing. Neither, it seemed, was structural integrity, or perhaps the building had been made before the Fromagian king had approved that last smattering of constructural ethics laws. The man with the bowler hat stood in an elevator that looked out upon a cobbled street, clustered with tanks and military vehicles. Nobody else could afford chugs in this economy. The elevator swayed with the whole building, and he couldn't help but despise it. This emotion went straight beyond hatred into bombastic fury. This God-forsaken place, this kingless country, this colossal failure. Every inch of it was filthy and desperate. The man did not used to think Truvia so dire as all of that. Once, he had been Truvia's greatest ally, as well as the Fromagian kingdom's worst enemy. He had championed this great nation from before the president had even finished middle school. And it was because of what that young lad became that he could no longer sit aside and await his death on a sinking ship. All he had to do was face forward. All Grain Berman had needed to do was keep his eyes steady on the task at hand, on the future they were building. But, really, the man with the bowler hat should have put a stop to this before Grain's addiction could spread into an incurable illness. He should have disposed of that reporter ages ago. He went on one trip to Sardonia to secure a young bride for one of their fiercest advocates, a man connected enough to secure trade rights for the most cutting-edge weapons made in the Republic of Stufant. It hadn't been 3 months of his absence, and he left the president, who, up to that point, had always fulfilled his role with obedience and competency. Yet upon his return, had become the most dangerous, useless thing the man with the bowler hat had ever known a man to be, a fiend in love. With an investigative reporter, no less. One who had connections within flavors around the world, the Fromagian times, and even from further away, like the tropical Cane Isles. All of these resistance groups, all these nitpicking ingrates who felt wronged by Truvia's success, all connected through him, through that reporter. Somehow, that damned kid had even walked straight into one of the dark sites for military training. Walked right in, plain in the daylight, to watch the frosted soldiers honing their powers. Grain had told the board, had told the man with the bowler hat, that he would handle it. This was his first mistake. He could already see the interest in the president's eyes, even before he'd met the kid. Rounding up to 20 years apart wasn't enough of a reality check, apparently, because then Grain had missed his first board meeting without calling to reschedule, without telling anyone. Biblical signs of impending doom would not be more ominous. The man with the bowler hat had not been in the country at that time, but he'd received a flurry of increasingly alarmed telegraphs. Why they had wasted time informing him, when they should have been out looking for the damned president, the man could not say. The truth was, it was the first time that he had the thought, perhaps the only competent one is me. And once the thought took form, took the stage of his mind, just once, it happened again and again and again. Because no, the president was not kidnapped or decapitated in a sewage canal like the man had hoped. That he could work with. Grain hadn't even lost contact with his security team. The bodyguards had responded right away. Once the louts in the boardroom had finally stopped sending out telegrams to people who could do nothing to help them, that the president was safe. He was in a cafe, having the time of his life, sitting across from, yes, the investigative journalist. The man with the bowler hat would have happily killed the kid then, but he relied on the president's training. His family line had prepared for this even longer than the man with the bowler hat, and Grain Berman had been raised for the sole purpose of seeing that dream's fruition. But things only got worse, and the man had had enough. While he enjoyed traveling the world, he did not have a home to return to. His wife and 3 daughters had remained in the Fromaggian kingdom. They thought he'd lost his mind when he'd turned on the king. They'd looked at him as if he were a plastic shoe, chipped and cracked and unbearable to walk on. He did not leave his family behind to be killed for treason in his stead. He did not ruin his reputation in every market and every trade. He did not go around the world begging and pleading and sucking up to royalty and nobility and those of high status for this. He did not give up everything just to turn back now. And so, when the man with the bowler hat heard news of the latest board meeting, whereupon Grain had actually said out loud, in front of all of his shareholders, "Let's stop experimenting with the frosted," he knew. He would have to sit at the top himself for anything to get done properly. Whether it be Truvia's oval seat or the Fromaggian throne, it didn't matter. The man with the bowler hat only needed one, and then he could destroy the other. So he'd fast-tracked an X-Squad mission into enemy territory, told the Commissioner General himself that there were prototype airplanes stashed in a warehouse along the southwestern edge of the Gruyere River, near Chardonia's border, a difficult place to send troops, even in the midst of full-out war. Only the X-Squad, made up of healed and trained Frosted, could do it. It was pure luck that Private Vardy had been one of them. The man had hoped, yes, but he didn't place much weight behind hope. But based on how she had been one of his served-up sacrifices, he took it to be heaven's will. He was doing God's work. It wasn't fair, was it, for Truvia to have artillery, planes, tanks, and Frosted, while the Fromaggian kingdom only had artillery, planes, and tanks? The man with the bowler hat dared Grain Berman to repeat his motion to stop all experimentation. Pretty soon, Truvia would not have the only Frosted on their roster. What will he do then, this investigative journalist who had installed a heartbeat into a cold, metallic shell of a person? The man with the bowler hat was impressed, really. He hadn't actually thought of Grain Berman as a human being before that 20-something ruined him. Because, of course, the notion to stop the experimentation hadn't come from the president. Your move, kid.